Ni hao Yang, hello, I am the Dark Fane. Welcome back to Confessions of a First-Time Dungeon Master. I forgot to bring a stuffed animal last time, so today we have Squishy Tonkatsu with us, who's super squish. And you're thinking, tonkatsu, like a pork cutlet? Yes. It's so cute. Okay, anyways. So this is for session 5. And this is sadly this is our last session for the year. And so we probably won't play again until after the holidays are over, until 2020, so it's gonna be a while. So for this session, it's getting towards the tail end of the quest, kind of to the main encounter, kind of, and I had kind of planned for this when I was mapping out the whole kind of quest line. So I had some ideas. I had some characters kind of sketched out for what some of the important people in Lebesque and kind of final boss kind of scenarios are. And so I went into the session with not a lot of time to prep because I was pretty busy and with some personal things over the holidays and just didn't have a lot of time leading up. So I kind of did all of my prep a couple hours in the night before and then the day of. But oddly enough, I think it's some of the most detailed prep that I've maybe done. So I'm gonna move you for a bit. Well, actually, so kind of before the session, kind of the day of while I was prepping, my players actually came to me and told me that they had something that they wanted to do, which I was actually really happy about because historically, as having been a player with this group and having seen kind of how we do things, we don't do a whole lot outside of game, and for them to actually come together and collab and come up with something with a plan was really awesome, and I was very proud. I was a proud mama bird of my players for getting into it and trying something new. So where we left off was they had just gotten kind of to the outskirts of Lebesque. They were attacked by the guards and the guard beasts. They took a cultist captive, interrogated him, got some information, and then upon the cultists' refusal to kind of turn faiths, they executed him, and then they found a place to rest. Nothing really happened in the nighttime, and then that's where we picked up for the session. So my players told me that they wanted to get Umrix, our cleric's goddess, involved because he is a death cleric, and who they believe is Kror is also a god of undeath, and gods and goddesses have a lot of conflict in my world. There's a lot of battle for territory and a lot of grudges and a lot of just conflict. So they wanted to have a death god battle, I guess, kind of like Aremsia, who is the goddess of night and darkness and death and poisons, versus Kror, who the bone lord, the lord of undeath. So they kind of wanted to build some sort of altar or shrine and perform some kind of a ritual or ceremony to summon Oremsia and get her divine help, basically, to either distract the cultists while they snuck in to the temple to steal the skull, which is the whole point of this quest, or to engage in battle, and they would split half and half, 3 of them fight and then 3 of them sneak in while the others are making the diversion, something like that, which I thought was a really cool idea. It is like a little bit, it was be difficult, and I ruled it as such because in general, like, gods and goddesses don't interfere too much in the mortal realm. They usually have either saints for that, or like avatars or other forces kind of that they will use instead of themselves. So they told me this beforehand, so I had a little bit of time to kind of come up with some like rules and like some outcomes that could happen depending on what they did and how they rolled. So that's what we started off with, and let's see. So it was pretty interesting. They were very creative, and they actually even also had like a chant or like a ritual that they wrote out and like read out and like in like alternating people. So that was really cool of my players to do so. So Umric started off with like kind of creating an altar and like making this like structure kind of. I think it was out of like charred branches and like basically anything black that they could find, because she's the goddess of darkness, so they're like, oh, black's the color. And he rolled a 12, which is like not great. It's not the worst, but I did it in a way where it wasn't really like a skill challenge where there were successes or failures. It was kind of like you describe to me what you're doing and then roll, and then the outcome will kind of be like the cumulative total of all of your guys' rolls, kind of, to see like how well you do. Because for Umric, like he, like his connection with his deity is not really hashed out between us because he doesn't have a lot of his memory, so it's kind of gray in terms of like how of a connection he kind of has to his goddess. But and then let's see, so Basil, our bard, and Tyrol, our fighter, they went to go hunting because they wanted to kind of find an animal to sacrifice to Aremsia. And let's see, initially Basil was the one tracking, and then Tyrol was the one hunting. So Basil rolled a 16, and they found like a deer kind of an animal. But Tyrol rolled a natural 1, so they didn't hit it. And then on the subsequent roll, Basil rolled a 10, so they found like a little possum kind of a creature. And that one, Tyrol hit with a 21. So they got, instead of like a big animal, they got kind of a smaller rodent-y thing. So again, 12 and then like a 10. It's kind of middling rolls. And then Valhyrie, our druid, wanted to try finding like poisonous plants and kind of like weave them into like a wreath kind of. And I think I asked for, I should tell you the checks. Creating the altar, I think, was either performance or either religion, or I think it was religion. Yeah, religion or performance. I let them choose. And then Basil's hunting was survival or nature. Usually I try to give them like 1 or 2 choices. And then Tyrol's was just an attack roll. And then so Valhyrie's roll for finding poisonous plants, I think, was either nature or survival as well. And she rolled a 9, which is not great. So she found some plants that like maybe were poisonous, but she's not really sure on the potency of it, so maybe like poison ivy level, but not really. And then Ivar 71, the Warforged, he had maybe the most like messed up idea, where he went back and took the dead cultist, like who was like a Bashan head, and then like drained him of his blood, and then like butchered him basically. And I think I rolled a medicine check for that to see if he could like successfully butcher a person. He rolled a 16, which was pretty decent, so he got him, and then he like arranged his limbs in like various parts into the shape of a diamond, which is the symbol of Aremsia, a black diamond. So there's that. And then Morgal made like a ring of fire around the altar, but rolled a 10. So their rolls were 12, 10, 16, 9, a 21 to kind of hit a creature, and then a 10. So not really great. And I really had planned on like something fucking spectacular happening if they did really well. Like, I had made plans for what his saint, Umric's saint, Saint Sereska looks like. I made plans for what Aremsia looks like. Like, I had a whole thing. They could have had like the fucking, what's it called? It's like a raised platform, like not kind of like their like center stage basically. I had plans for that to fucking like crack and explode. I had plans for like shadows to rise up out of the ground of all of the cultists and like fucking start murdering them. Yeah, there's a lot that could happen, but because it was so like in the middle, what ended up happening was, as they were performing this ritual, Umric back up. They wanted to wait until nighttime to do this, and they started in the middle of the day, so they had some time to kill. Valhyrie, Tyrell, and Basil, they went to go like capture another animal because Umric wanted a live one to perform a ceremony on for like a funeral rite, which is an actual spell in D&D. So there was that. And then, actually no, it was Ivar, 71, Basil, and Valhyrie. And then Tyrell and our elven fighter and Umric, they went to scout out Lebesk a little bit more. But the only thing that they really saw was that the watchtowers were empty at this time, and there was a reason for that. But no one wanted to like go into the fucking city after being jumped by this Molgoth, of which there were still Molgoths patrolling. So they didn't really glean a lot of information at all from just looking on like the very outskirts of the city, because you can't fucking see anything if you're a million miles away. Anyways, so they perform the ritual at night, or like as soon as the sun sets. And he sacrifices this fox and is like swinging it around, like spraying blood everywhere. My god, this is morbid. What I basically had happen was like they waited for a minute with nothing happening, and then like a few more moments pass, and then like the ring of fire turns black, and then like from the front of the altar like this pool of darkness appears, and this figure kind of slowly rises up, cloaked, wielding like a scythe, but not Saint Sereska's famous scythe. And then like instead of a face, it's just kind of like the top half of a skull, so it's like missing like the lower portion. And it's like an avatar of death, kind of taken from the avatar of death that you can summon from a deck of many things. And sorry, I took cards, I'm like smooshing your face. So the avatar of death kind of appeared, and they spoke. Umric asked kind of for aid in battling against Kror, saying that like they wanted to defeat these cultists in the name of Remsia in order to like strike back against Kror, etc. But they weren't very specific in what they wanted, and I kind of wanted them to ask for like a specific request, like do you want Aremsia to create like a distraction? Do you want them to like start killing people? But they just said, we want your help. So eventually, because they kept like fixating on Cror, like one of the things that I had prepared for like the outcome was that the avatar, like whatever they summoned, would give them pieces of information that they might not know. And basically the Avatar of Death told them that there are no followers of Cror here, because there's not, because these cultists follow Nogvral, the Devourer, god of insatiable hunger, who is the one who created the Flesh Rovers, which is like the beings of the skull of which they're looking for. So it's not Cror at all. And they're like, oh shit, well, okay, never mind then, because Aremsia doesn't actually have a quarrel with Nogvral. She's more against Cror and like Trin the Allfather and Wistria, because Wistria is always trying to fucking go in on her territory, and Zenaria as well. I know you probably have no idea what names I'm spouting, but those are all gods and goddesses of my homebrew world. So they're like, okay, well, shit, never mind then. They could have still asked for his help, even though Aremsia doesn't have a quarrel with Nogvral, because this is like her cleric and a task that they're doing. But after he said like that, they were kind of like, okay, never mind, I guess you're not gonna help. So the Avatar disappears. Gave them like the last bit of advice to like watch, like wait and watch, because I tend to not do a lot of waiting and watching. Okay, and so after the Avatar disappeared, then they're like, well, shit, we need a new plan. And they decided to send Valkyrie in as a cat to kind of scout and see what was kind of going on in the city. So, which she did. She went in first. I really need to get better at stealth checks and their outcomes, because when you roll not good stealth checks, people should notice you, right? But anyways, well, I guess there wasn't anyone to notice. Never mind. So Valkyrie goes in as a cat to kind of look around first. The Molgoth, one of the Molgoths that it's patrolling does notice her, because I think she rolled like a 9 on her stealth, which is not the best stealth roll. But the Molgoth doesn't, like, she's an animal, and in like a not human form, the Molgoth doesn't attack. So she's able to kind of slip in and take a look around the city, finally. And she finds that like the outskirts of the city are empty, actually, and there's more of a commotion towards the center of the city. Now the city is very like uncivilized and very run down. Like the houses are barely like living abodes. They're very run down, very basic. Some of the living places are more of like a compound where there's like several abodes kind of grouped together with like a center kind of area or courtyard. So she wanders further in, and then the rest of the party, who originally was going to wait, then decided to also go to jump one of the Molgoths and then go into the city and follow. So they did. They didn't roll a great stealth check for surprising the Molgoth, but they did well enough that we didn't roll combat for it, because it was just like one thing, and they kind of were able to kill it in like a round and a half, so pretty quick. And then so they went into the city, found the same thing, that the outskirts were deserted, and then kind of made their way to the middle. So now in the middle of the city, this is where it gets interesting, is there's like this raised kind of a platform with these like 4 staircases like leading up towards it, with like these ruined like columns and archways, and that's lit by like this red kind of sickly firelight, and all the cultist scenes in the city are kind of gathered there, like waiting very eagerly for something, and they're kind of like cheering and screaming and like just like raucous noise coming from all of them, and so they wait and they watch for a little bit, and then they see these 3 figures kind of ascend, and these are basically the leaders kind of Lebesque. Well, one of them is more of like a bodyguard, so he's just like this really tall dude carrying a great axe with like kind of armor that's just been kind of like pieced together. He's got like some scars, but not as heavy of like deformity and mutilation as like the rest of the cultists. So he kind of stands to the side, and then the guy who talks is a bald human wearing like robes, also like missing a few fingers and stuff like that. His name is Lord Taum, and he's kind of the boss of all the cultists. And then next to him is like the shaman of the city. I call her the witch, and she is also missing pieces. She's got missing like 2 ribs, a chunk of her like forearm, etc. She carries this like very ornate staff and is wearing this like headdress of like bones and all of that. So they kind of ascend the stage and address all of the cultists, etc., basically asking for like a sacrifice. And one of the cultists goes up the platform, and the witch kind of praises him, I guess, is like, may you rest in the halls of what is it, may you rest in the halls of the devourer. And then she basically like bites him and like tears a chunk out of his shoulder and eats it. And then and then all the cultists kind of like rush up the steps and eat him alive. So they're cannibals. It's Nugral, the devourer. His people, all they do is eat and eat and eat. So that was colorful. And then so basically this like ceremony kind of turns into a feeding frenzy kind of, and like that's kind of where they get a lot of their like missing body parts and like scars from, is from these like sacrificial kind of displays. So as that's going, the 3 main figures kind of descend again. Lord Tom, he goes back into the temple, and then the witch and the bodyguard, they actually take these like 5 prisoners who are lined up just outside the temple, and they kind of actually head off into the Yurkasi forest. So I had 2 routes that planned for them to be able to go. One of them was in the temple, and the other was to follow them into the forest. I think the temple would be more difficult. I planned like quite a bit of things like to happen in the temple. Like it'd be harder to find the object they're seeking, and and like the encounter, both encounters are difficult, but this, like going into the temple had more consequences, I would say. Whereas going into the forest, that one actually is a bit more story driven and has more ways out. So after some discussion of like who the leader of Lebesque is and kind of recounting some of the information that they learned, they decided to follow the witch, which I'm kind of excited for because her character's fun to play. I actually made character sheets for all 3 of these. Strength of the Glaive Sorceress for the witch, Barbarian Zealot for the bodyguard dude, and Lord Tom, I believe, is a necromancy wizard. Did I change that? I think Necromancy Wizard. So it's kind of fun. I kind of do miss being able to actually like play characters and have their abilities like as a DM now. So getting to do that is really exciting. I'm pretty eager to try them out because I haven't played a barbarian before, and I played a sorceress for like one session like many years ago when we weren't actually playing D&D. So they follow like the witch and her bodyguard and these 5 prisoners. They also bring along one of the beasts, one of the Molgoths, and they follow stealthily at a distance, and they roll high enough stealth with pass without trace that they aren't noticed, and so they kind of wander into the forest for about an hour until they reach this like tunnel kind of trees. So the trees kind of start like growing over to form this kind of an archway, and this just like long like tunnel of trees. So they follow the witch and the barbarian inside, and they come into this like large dome almost kind of the same like overarching trees. It's about like, I think the map I made is maybe like 60 to 70 feet in diameter, and like there are these like bright blue glowing crystals around the space, and then like near the back of this kind of in the back of the place is like this circle of entwined like branches and vines that's maybe about 15 foot in diameter, just kind of sitting at the back, and they creep around the edges to watch. And the witch goes up to this ring and starts like performing some kind of a spell in Abyssal. Basil casts comprehend languages to kind of see to kind of discern what she's doing, and he recognizes that it's this like some kind of spell to open up like a portal or gateway, and it takes 10 minutes, but they wait and watch. And then eventually when the spell completes, like these runes kind of start to glow along like the circumference of the circle, and then it flashes, and this like kind of like a hazy, distorted almost image of like another forest appears within the circle, and the witch and the barbarian, they undo the first prisoner's shackles, and these prisoners have been affected or charmed or something, which the players do realize, and so they're not like fighting to get away. They don't really seem aware of their surroundings. Their stare is just very blank and very like empty. So they undo the first prisoner's shackles, and they just kind of push them through the portal. So I think 2 people go through, and then Basil, our bard, he tries to cast detect thoughts on the barbarian to kind of see maybe what's going on, or what is kind of like what they're doing. But the barbarian saves, and when you save from the spell, they know that the spell was used on them, so now they know that there's somebody else here. So then everyone rolls initiative, basically. And I didn't do it very well because I didn't really have them like roll to hide. I don't know why I didn't, because it was kind of because they'd already rolled like 2 stealth checks before, and then they still had pass without a trace going, so I kind of just left it. But really they would be hidden kind of no matter what, unless they rolled a 1, but yeah, so I probably should have done that. But that was kind of where we ended the session. I really wanted to get through this combat to kind of end like the year, end the story in like a good spot, but it was already pretty late by then, and this was probably one of the more difficult combats, so we didn't quite get to it. They were going to level up probably at the end of the session, but the timing didn't quite go as planned, but that's okay, because we might try to roll 20 it or start off with combat next time. It's not a huge deal. And then one more detail that I did give them was that as they were kind of going around the sides of the chamber to hide and watch behind like the crystals, they did notice that there are like piles of bones, like vaguely like humanoid shaped bones that are kind of lying around. This might give stuff away if they see this, but I don't think they're gonna see this. But they are looking for a skull, and there are bones. Skull, bones. It would be worth a look, wouldn't it? Also, yeah. Also because they don't remember this, but I do. But one of the hints, or like one of the things that Ferney, the person who gave them this quest, said was that, like, when they asked, like, oh, where do we find the skulls? She said, you should be able to just pick it up off the ground. Otherwise, you're in for a fight. Foreshadowing! But I think that detail is small enough that they don't remember. And then when I had them roll an intelligence check to see if they did remember, they rolled like an 8, or a 6. So they didn't. So there's that. It'll be interesting. I feel like they'll be pretty mad at me when they realize they could have just like looked and then left. They still can. This is what I meant by there are ways out. But if they do fight, they get some cool stuff too, so risk, reward, and all that, you know? And I'm hoping that this, because I'm not good at like balancing encounters too well yet. And I don't really know the balance between like characters versus other characters rather than like characters versus monsters. So, because like it operates a little bit differently, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. I guess there are consequences for this one too, because the witch is a leader of Lebesque. We'll see what happens. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're excited about where this story is going, because I am. Like, getting to reveal to them that it wasn't Kror and it's actually like Nogvral behind the city, like worship and cultists, like I feel like it's not as big of a bombshell to them as it should be, so I might need to like drive that home a little bit more. But I'm really excited to see like where it could go next, because there's so many places that they could go and so many like different things they could do. Like this is really in like Avar 71's backstory range area court because he has fought these flesh rovers before, and like alarm bells should be like sounding everywhere when he hears of Nogvral and flesh rovers, like here in the main part of the continent. Introduce himself with Basil's backstory and his mysterious ring. Urmurk did a thing with Eremsia, and so maybe I can roll something with that. And then I have ideas for a way to tie in, or a way to bring in like Terral's backstory, like maybe once they get to the Siscoran Keep or something. So yeah, there's just so many different directions, and I'm pretty excited for it, because like backstory stuff is one of my favorite things to do in a campaign, and kind of just like the openness of, or like the freedom of like possibility of like getting to like create like any of these kind of storylines. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that. Comment down below on whether you ever successfully summoned a god or goddess in your D&D campaign. And I will see you next time.